You're listening to Big World Network.
The Legend of Talimar, Installment 1, The Silent Stream, written and read by Stephen M. Booth. The pointed tip of the magical oar plunged into the placid waters. Without so much as a ripple or splash to betray her, Antarra impelled her coracle carefully towards the shore, skimming lightly over the surface of the river Saline. The lightweight, rudderless craft rode the swirling eddies and currents like a leaf blown by the autumn wind, and it required all of her considerable focus to remain upright. The river was not the natural habitat for a dark elf, and although Antarra was a decent enough sailor, her nautical abilities were the product of study and effort and not the result of any innate talent or sense of things aquatic. She was, after all, an Alo Dara, and not one of those mindless merfolk who seemed more interested in siren song than in actually doing anything useful with their lives. The moonless sky didn't help matters either. The waters of the river were crystal clear in the daylight, but seemed opaque and somehow more ominous when illumined only by the stars. Still, darkness was good. She had no desire to be seen this deep within the forest of Valinor. The time would come to reveal herself. Being discovered early would be inconvenient. After a few tense moments, Antarra reached the shore without incident. Grabbing an overhanging branch, she pulled herself closer and leapt onto her nearby root. She hauled her craft into the foliage and secured it to an aged banyan tree. She had chosen the rounded, canoe-like boat specifically for this. It may be difficult to control, but the craft was light and easy to conceal, and she may have need of a hasty retreat if things went badly. Casting about for any signs of detection, and sensing none, she went invisible and crept through the verdant grass, thriving near the bank of the river. The only sound on this windless night was the gentle harmony of the forest crickets and the occasional curious call of a night owl. Clearly the denizens of the green elven forest had not yet perceived her presence. Antarra glanced heavenward and consulted the Eyes of Darkness, or so they were called by the star-seers, who claimed to be able to hear the voices in the sky. Although she did not possess that particular gift, she knew the constellations well. She needed to head left and toward a small rise of ground in the distance. Silently mouthing the proper incantation, she traced a sigil in the air with her left hand. The forest leapt to light in her magically enhanced vision, revealing Antarra's surroundings in a strange yet comforting palette of blues and white. She sidled around a thorn bush and started the long trek towards the great oak that was the heart and home of the Alo Kin culture, the majestic central tree of life. It was a long way. She had not gone far, however, when movement in the upper branches of one of the trees on the other side of a small clearing caught her practiced eye. It was a watcher, one of the green elf sentries set to detect incursions into their domain. Antarra instinctively dropped to her knees and backed to the refuge of a nearby elm, calculating her options. She knew what Karthek would do. She had discovered his legend in the histories only yesterday. The ancient winged, elvish warrior would fly to the base of the tree, bound up the trunk in a single leap, and dispatch the sentry before he could so much as utter a sound. But this was not her way. She was a scholar, not a warrior. And besides, the whole point of coming here was to gain access to the great library of the Alo Kin. Killing one of their watchers would not exactly contribute to that endeavor. Still, this was hardly the place for introductions. She was still very much on the outskirts of the forest, and watchers were notorious for loosing 5 or 6 arrows and then politely inquiring afterward as to their victim's intent. Antarra absently brushed a stray lock of her jet-black hair from her eyes, scowled, and peeked around the tree. The greenie was on the other side of the clearing. Clearly he had not detected her, no alarm had been sounded, but he was situated in the worst possible location, directly in her path. Surveying the surrounding landscape did not prove fruitful either. The trees to the west were heavily encumbered with a thick blanket of dead branches, leaves, and ivy. It would be impossible to pass through without making a horrible racket. Nor was the east any better. The thicket to the right was overgrown with brambles, and they were a nasty variety, with lengthy thorns and thick, unyielding vines and branches. She had read about them. You didn't want to be pricked unless you had a healer nearby. Drat, well, there was only one alternative. With grim determination and a stealth that would put a skulking Narthak to shame, Antarra carefully snuck to the base of the Watcher's tree. He was perched about halfway up, sitting cross-legged on a small, translucent platform spanning two of the branches. She took several long moments to will herself into stillness, and then nervously checked her retreat. The safety of the trees on the other side of the clearing seemed worlds away, and the wicked, sharp points of the thornfield behind her glittered in the magicite, as if they were taunting her, testing her resolve. She gritted her teeth, rose from her concealment, and stepped into a clear space not far from the tree. Making sure her hands were nowhere near a weapon, she tried to put on her most casual voice and called upward with a clear and plaintive tone. "Pardon me, up there in the tree. Are you one of the Watchers of Valinor? Because I've been wandering around down here for a good hour now, looking for someone who might know the way, and you're the only elf I've seen. Do you happen to know the way to the Prime Arborant, the central tree place? I need to talk with Shathira about some research at the Great Library, if you're not too busy. Sleeping the night away, that is."
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on bigworldnetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.